Everything that I'm about to present to you right now is not meant to scare you, but rather to prepare you. Keep that in mind. Over the past several years, I've done many videos about Leviathan, Behemoth, Titans, and things like that your mom and dad told you as a kid were a fairy tale, but I proved to you to be far more. Well, you're going to want to listen to this. So nowadays, a lot of people are talking about this big old sea serpent sitting at the bottom of South America, surrounding the Antarctica ice wall, as I like to say. But we've talked about that image enough. What I'm going to do is take you back a little further to when things used to be a little hectic over in Babylon the Great, USA's coastlines. You see, as a kid growing up, you see things like this on maps, and then you get your imagination running wild, and you ask your teacher, hey, why does it have this? Is this real? And they come up with some excuse and blame it on some blue whale or thing like that, and then it's just swept under the rug, and you don't believe in dragons, and you don't believe in things like that at all, and you just move forward about your life. But listen to this. Here lately, I've been telling you guys the importance of 1776, George Washington, and our freedom that was created at the same time as the Bavarian Lodge, the Illuminati, and our free and accepted Freemasonry that's taking part in the USA today started with Grand Master Mason George Washington. But I'm not going to talk about just that. I've told you also lately about their obsession with returning back to Atlantis. Here lately, I've been telling you guys the importance of this 250-year anniversary happening right now, and the importance of 1776, when we got our freedom, / the Freemasons became free and accepted, the Bavarian Lodge created the Illuminati, and all of that stuff technically began. But I also told you the importance of 1776 and the breaking loose of the abyss and setting things loose from beneath our oceans. Being that it tells you at the end, things start coming back out of the abyss. If you remember correctly, you know that I told you in 1776 was the first time the world had created, in the United States, had created a working submarine to be used as a naval force. Called the Turtle, designed in 1775, the world's first submersible used in combat during the American Revolutionary War in 1776. Against the Eagle. Well, do you know what became widely popular in the 17th century? Well, in the 17th century, there was a big focus on sea serpents. Sea serpents in European countries were usually seen as dangerous, even evil, inclined to destroy ships and eat sailors, as you see here, as depicted on the maps. Yes, it's going to be a little lengthy, so take a little deep breath and hang on a second, because this stuff coming up, you're really going to want to hear. So after 1776, the mid-1700s, as we read earlier, you have this massive surge of serpent sightings happening off the coast of Atlantic / the Atlantis Ocean. And here is what some of them were seeing. The serpent shook its head and its tail in an extraordinary manner and advanced toward the ship with open jaws. I had caused the cannon to be reloaded, but he had come so near that all the crew were seized in terror, and we thought only of getting out of his way. He almost touched the vessel, and had I not attacked as I did, he would certainly have come on board. He dived, but in a moment we saw him come up again, and his head on one side of the vessel and his tail on the other, as if it was going to lift up and upset us. However, we did not feel any shock. He remained 5 hours near us, only going backward and forward. And this big old giant sea serpent was seen with a head that looked like a horse. And they called it a monster. And people got their hopes in science. Read this next part. Part of the excitement of the 1800s about the monsters of the sea was the idea that science could now explain what had once been myth or legends. / they didn't. But watch this. Look at what was being put out in their newspaper. So, what I'm going to read to you right now comes from a newspaper article that was put out in Maine about a big giant sea serpent that haunted, and I'm saying this in quotation, haunted the East Coast. Okay? Talking about a sea monster that haunts their shores. And you can screenshot this and read it as you want to. They named it Embargo. But here's this. Read at the bottom. This monster is also a very modest monster and confines itself to its own element and sphere. The old embargo, on the contrary, found the wide Atlantic too narrow to sport in, and sometimes became a land animal, and, like Pharaoh's frogs, crept into the innermost recesses of our bedchambers. Let our coast, then, be surrounded by myads and of the sea snakes and etc., etc., etc. And these sightings went on for a long time. I actually have a video on YouTube where I point out, it's like 30 or 40 different sightings in depth where I go and look into these things with you guys. But I want you to pay attention to this part. Now, another thing that I've been doing with you guys is pointing out a whole lot of crazy, sketchy things that have happened in our oceans over the past several years as well, especially this whole surge of unmanned vehicles and things like that, all pointing to the movie series Pacific Rim. Now, this next part, for those that have decided to stick it out, should blow your mind. Guess what launched in 1750? The first Leviathan, which was a 70-gun, third-rate ship for the Royal Navy, HMS Leviathan, right? 1777, right after 1776, for the Atlantic Ocean. And then you have the second one, which is called the Leviathan by 1790. And then by 1900, pay attention to this one, this is nuts. You have the Drake-class armored cruiser, which launched in 1901, and was sold for scrap by 1920. And then you have a fourth Leviathan called the Majestic class. 4 different big Titan ships named Leviathan, but I want you to focus on this one that's called Drake. You see, this is Drake Passage, which not only just means dragon, but it technically means wingless dragon. This is a wingless dragon. And do you remember I told you that Leviathan guards Atlantis? Well, do you remember that big old sea serpent I was telling you earlier? Guess what they named it? Scoliophis Atlanticus. And in closing, I find all this fascinating. You know that HMS, which is Leviathan class ship, the Drake one? Well, guess where it found itself? Near the Drake Passage, where it was sunk. Right down by Chile, the bottom part of South America. And as you know, I've talked a lot about what took place at Pearl Harbor, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and also talked about what took place during the German and American confrontation / the world confrontation that took place there in World War I, with Eichler, who was obsessed with the V Society and the T Society, and Leviathan Snout, which is the Thrall Island we talked about as well. Pretty fascinating that the United States seized the SS Leviathan during all of that chaos as well. You see, many books talk about this Leviathan creature appearing and all this other stuff, but I want to focus on 2 Baruch chapter 29, which was Apocryphal out of your Bible. Well, it says this, at the time of the end, and Behemoth will reveal itself from its place, and the Leviathan will come from the sea, the 2 great monsters which I created on the 5th day of creation, and which I shall have kept until that time, and they will be nourishment for all who are left. And then you have the completely restored new heaven, new earth, complete and final. You're done with the evil stuff. And if you think that's crazy, go check out my YouTube channel or my Reels section, because I blow a lot of this stuff completely out of the water.